ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Mr. Abhishek Rastogi, partner Khaitan Co, advocate, Supreme Courts, and various high courts joining in. Welcome to the show, Abhishek, and it's always a pleasure to speak to you and get so much insights from you. And today, I think what we're going to discuss is one of the most emerging markets that we're seeing in terms of the Indian economy. That's about the online gaming space. And what's the fate of this space going to be, taking into consideration the last couple of deliberations that have been happening at the GOM? Abhishek, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure always to be there on your show.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. Abhishek, let's first discuss in terms of what were the modalities of the online gaming space earlier, and what are the recommendations that will change a lot of things, because it's very important, for the viewers to understand as to how was this space actually viewed.
So I think, to be very fair and honest, today there are more ambiguities. So there are more questions than answers. And when I'm talking about that, it is not just the tax rate. The tax rate could go up and down, but on what base that rate will be applicable, on what valuation it will be applicable. Would all of these lottery, casinos, online gaming, horse racing, will all these be treated at par? Will there be same formula? Or will these be treated differently? Because all of these work in a different mechanism. All of these have some different modalities. So the question which arises now is not only the rate of taxation, but also these certain factors which are very peculiar and specific to these sectors, and whether the play with respect to game of skill versus game of chance comes into play.
Right. So with all of this said and done, what is the current framework of the online gaming space in India, and how is it proposed to change?
So online gaming, as you are aware, can happen from any part of the India. It can happen from even outside of India. The servers could be in India, the servers can be outside of India. The company operating these gamings could be in India, could be outside of India. Now, what happens is that certain states intend to ban these online gaming transactions in that particular state. So what will happen is, if that comes into play, a person who's situated in that state will not be able to play when he's within that state. The companies which would want to operate for online gamings would not be able to operate from that state. Even the server will not be there. So that is on the regulatory part of it. On the taxation part of it, the GOM will now decide that whether these will be taxed at 18% or whether these will be taxed at the higher rate of 28%. Industry today feels, especially the online gaming, that if these are taxed at 28%, there will be very less incentive for people to play, because 1/3 of it will go to taxes. And there will be some platform fee and so on and so forth. And after that, there'll be hardly anything which will go as an incentive to the person who wins it. They would prefer, in that situation, to go to the foreign online gaming platforms. In fact, it is feared today that if the tax rate comes at 28%, then some of these Indian companies operating in India may not find it feasible to operate from India, and they may move outside of India as well.
Right. So currently, what's the taxation rate with regards to online gaming?
See, today, the taxation rate is 18%.
Okay.
Now, the rate also becomes a problem when it comes to the way you would apply that rate. And I will explain that to you. So for example, if there is an online Ludo, 4 participants pool in money of 100 rupees each, and the money comes in a common wallet or on the table. It's called table money. Out of that 400 rupees, 40 rupees goes to the online platform, which is its fee to operate that. 360 rupees remain on the table. The person who wins the online Ludo had put 100 rupees, but on winning, he takes 360 back. Now, this is possible only when the rate of either 18% or 28%, whatever that rate may be, is applicable only on rupees 40, which is the platform fee. If that 28% now becomes applicable to the entire 400, then imagine more than 100 rupees, about 130 rupees will go as taxes. And hence, the person who even wins that today, who would get 360, will get 130 less. So he puts in 100 and he gets only 250. So incentive comes down, the tax increases, the tax burden increases, there'll be less incentive, and there are higher chances that the industry will not survive at that tax rate. If the valuation happens at 18% or 28%, but only on the element of service, then there is no problem. But if it happens on the entire value, then I think also the moot point which arises is that the constitutional validity of that will have to be challenged, because the other part of it is not towards the service. And GST law very clearly provides that the tax has to be on the supply of either goods or services. We have taken a view that the balance amount of 360 in this example is not an element of service, but sort of an actionable claim or an amount which needs to be redistributed.
Right. So with all of this said and done, say, for example, if the government decides on a 28% taxation, and if all of these companies who are a part of that ecosystem are within the country, everyone gets charged. However, if they decide to put their servers, their companies actually start operating from outside of India and their target audience is in India, then how do the modalities work?
So I think then in that case, the government will have to start banning a lot of these platforms. There will be a lot of IT intervention which will be required. There'll be fines on, these companies operating in India. There will be fines even if one gets to know that which are the users which are using this. So I think that may not be a very feasible perspective, looking the global perspective also in mind. So I think that must not happen. Rather, we must encourage this business in a regulated way in India. Banning may not help it in several ways, but regulating it, determining the right tax position, providing tax certainty will help the industry, will help the government. This industry has a lot of optimism within it. And we know for a fact that today India has got the best IT brain. New such products are coming, new games are coming, new ways to play these games are coming. And when we have that talent, India could actually become online gaming hub. And I think the endeavor must remain to make India an online gaming hub with all monetary limits, with all tracking that, it is a game of chance or a game of skill. And how do you tax differently when it is a pure gambling versus when it is a pure game of skill? Today, a lot of youngsters play chess online. They meet different people online. They play chess online. And for that platform, they pay some money. They get that exposure sitting at home. So if you have an option of playing chess online with online competitions happening, then I think, India must look forward to such initiatives. India must make this destination as an online gaming hub with proper regulation, ensuring that even if some sort of an element of gambling or by chance comes, that has to be regulated in such a way so that the monetary stakes are not huge. And once the monetary stakes cross a particular threshold, then you need to disclose your PAN number, proper TDS deduction, and so on and so forth. So if that happens, then I think we have a bright future.
Right. Another aspect, Abhishek, I want to consider over here is, say, for example, you pick up a show like a Kaun Banega Crorepati, right? Does that also become a part of an online gaming system? Because in the end, it's again a game that is being played online and offline. There are prize amounts that are given out as well. How would all of that be viewed?
See, I think you are raising a very, very fundamental question. And the distinction will remain to classify all of these activities into two baskets: game of skill versus game of chance. When we talk about Kaun Banega Crorepati or these quizzes, there is a lesser element of chance. You may have that 50-50 option or call a friend option and so on and so forth. But still, even that relates to the skill. How fast a person answers, what remedies he takes to answer that. Is he using only probability? So for instance, when you compare this with horse racing, there is no comparison because horse racing is not in your hand. When you compare it to a casino or a game of roulette in casino, then you have hardly anything in your hand. I mean, there is nothing called skill which is required there, unless and until you try to prove that arithmetically you can prove something, which is very, very rarest in rare cases. So I think quizzes, Kaun Banega Crorepati are all games of skills. These may be online or offline, should not make much of a difference. And I think you have raised a very fundamental question that what happens with these sort of activities? Will they also fall within a higher tax bracket? And mind you, any income generated by the participant is already subject to 30% tax.
30% tax.
Exactly. So then 28% GST on that amount, or some amount may not be feasible at all. But when it comes to situations like Kaun Banega Crorepati, it is different from these online gamings, also from the perspective that the person who's participating there is not paying any table money, is not contributing anything to participate there, is not paying any participation fee. So the tax which can come would be only on the participation fee. So I think Kaun Banega Crorepati type of gaming or quizzing platforms should be treated completely differently.
Right. And overall, if you see in terms of the other countries which have legalized online gaming, what are the key learnings that we as a country should be taking on the taxation front, and which would be the best example according to you?
See, I think some of these countries have regulated it very well. So for instance, if you see the casino business, they say that, we would not go into the details of what you're winning or losing. The moment you enter a casino, we will, for the entrance fee, we will charge you a tax rate. And whatever coins you take, whatever chips you take in the beginning, we will charge you the amount of tax rate at an agreed price on those chips. Now, you could play several times. You may win or lose. The amount of chips we have given is the amount of service which we have given to you. Now, if you lose it completely, the tax is paid. Even if you gain now something out of it, there was an element of service, because to that extent there was a service, but only it is an additional amount which has come to you. So once you buy the chips, the service is to that extent. What is the consequential effect of that? If you lose everything, then the tax is paid on everything. If you win or you add something to that, the value of service remains only to the amount of the chips which were given to us. So those are the principles followed for casinos. And as far as online gaming is concerned, valuation remains an important aspect. And if you see a lot of these countries in EU has a good model. They say that the element of service is nothing but the revenue which is earned by these online gaming platforms. The remaining money comes only as a pool money. It comes on the table, which needs to be distributed. So it does not accrue as revenue to any entity or to the online gaming platform in this case. And hence, they have very categorically said that the tax amount would be only on the element of service, which is nothing but a supply of these online gaming companies. So I think they have addressed those. Whereas when you see lottery and horse racing, these are globally treated with different eye. It is felt that lotteries are pure gambling. There is nothing called skill which is involved there. Similarly, when it comes to horse racing, the person who's putting money does not know much, and it completely depends on how the performance happens on the ground. So I think there is less skill involved in that, and hence these are not treated as games of skills. While the person who's running the horse or the derby would have all the skills, but the person who's participating and putting money is basically putting it by chance and winning it by chance. So I think lotteries and horse racing are treated separately as compared to casinos in various cases, and online gaming certainly has been given a different treatment all across Europe.
Right. And overall, especially from a casino angle, Abhishek, there is a different funda in terms of offline as well as, onshore and offshore casinos in India, right? Do the modalities change on that aspect as well?
So the law says casinos are operative only in 2 states in India. The law says if you're on the land, then you could operate these casinos only if there is no human intervention. So even if the shuffling of the card happens or the distribution of the card happens, that must happen without human intervention. So today, if we see the casinos which are there on land in Goa, they have no human intervention because the shuffling of the cards or the distribution of the card also happens by way of machine. So they are able to operate. It's not that they are not able to operate. But if you are on the sea and there are casinos on the sea, then the provisions are different. Then there could be human intervention or the distribution of cards, etc., can happen by a person who's physically sitting there. So the provisions could be slightly different, but the consequential effect, if we have to see, we have to analyze it from the perspective whether these are games of skill or whether these are games of chance. So if you ask me that when it comes to games like roulette, these are completely games of chance because the chance or the probability plays an important factor. But if you, for example, see poker or rummy, which is played across the table, it is completely game of skill because if you would not know, how to play rummy, you would not be able to win. And similarly, poker, and even if you see some games like which are commonly played like flash, etc., these are games of skill because how much stake you have to put, what moves you have to make, when you have to bluff, when you have to keep your client cards blind, and so on and so forth, are completely game of skills. So I think, but this is pure gambling. So I think what needs to be considered is that whenever we are talking about even games of skills, are these completely related to gambling? Now, if you compare the gaming which happens in casinos for rummy, let's say, which could be a game of skill, but at the end of the day, it is gambling as compared to the online game or the physical game of chess, which is happening, but for money. So, how would you compare that? And if kids are participating today through the online mediums in chess competitions, online chess competition, or buying these times for validity periods or the coupons to play online, then would you compare those at the same rate or at the same value when it comes to casinos, etc., will remain a question mark for the GAO to decide.
Right. So very lastly, overall, Abhishek, to sum up the conversation, according to you, this is an industry which is growing and it should not be killed, number one. Two, to make that happen, the rates should be rationalized at 18% and not at 28%. And thirdly, if you see in terms of where the overall engagement goes, it should be on the table money and not on the sum that the winner takes back, right?
I think you are absolutely right. You've summarized it quite well. Valuation will remain an important aspect. 18% will be the welcome rate at this stage. Even if for some activities it has to be at 28%, there must be tax certainty that 28% applies on which value. Banning is not the solution, according to me. Regulating it is a better option.
Absolutely. And this is an industry, and taking the demography of our country into consideration, it's more in terms of the youth of today, which is interested in this. And this could be a growing industry with the young minds and the brilliant minds that we have. And when is the decision, according to you, expected?
Next month.
Right. So I think that's something we should be watching out for as well and analyze it once the decision is out. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and giving us insights on what could be the fate of this industry, what could happen to even stocks like Delta Corp, who's one of the listed entities in this space. So a lot of correlations between what's happening across. But thank you so much. Stay safe and speak to you soon again.
Thanks. Stay safe.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.